So I rewatched before I uploaded. I rewatched the video about Ryan and his many stylish headwinds. All thanks to yours truly. Actually, one more thing I wanted to add about that. After that knock on the head, the last knock on the head, he got really cool. He used to be very withholding and very shy. And one of the things that my family and I would make fun of him for is he couldn't even go up to the counter at like a fast food place to ask for ketchup. He just could not do it. So I just strut on up there like, I'll take some ketchup, please. And he's like, how can you do that? And I'm just like, they're just people. Like, people are just people. Just ask for what you want, and generally you'll end up getting it. Anyways, after his final knock to the head that I gave him, he stopped being super worried about. He stopped being super worried about what people thought and stuff like that. So I don't want to claim credit for it, but I don't want to not claim credit for it either. Um, so, anyways, back onto the other story. Um, the I want to tell you about the time that my mom and dad thought that we were kidnapped, and I say that as like as it only happened once, from what I know. As far as like my parents thinking that we were kidnapped. So we were both going to middle school at the same time. He was in the lowest grade and I was in the highest grade there, at Balboa. And we would once a week take a ride on a bus. Was it middle school or was it elementary school? It was elementary school. It wasn't middle school. Okay. Because we would ride the bus sometimes to and from middle school, but our elementary school, the only time that we would ride the bus is to go to my grandmother's house, who lived just 5 minutes away from us in Ventura. So we would go there, and she made it her duty to kind of teach us manners, and to show us how to properly eat. And we would go there and learn how to garden and just, spend some time with Oma, spend some time with our grandmother. Um, so I couldn't quite remember what day that we were supposed to go, and we went to our usual meeting spot for my parents, for my mom to pick us up from school, and she wasn't there yet. And I was thinking, well, crap, are we supposed to take the bus today? What are we supposed to do? So we ended up walking back to the school, and I meet up with a friend of mine there, which we would carpool with in elementary school. Um, and um, he said, "Aren't you supposed to go to your grandma's today?" And I was like, "Oh no, we're gonna miss the bus." So I grabbed my brother and we book it. We book it right to the bus. Make it just in time. They're just about to close the thing, and we get on, and he has to sit in one spot, and I've got to sit in the other because all the spots were taken up. There wasn't two seats next to each other, and nobody wanted to like get up and move around and do that whole thing. So we end up making it to the stop, and we hear some people calling the bus driver over the radio. Just as we're leaving, and they say, "We're looking for two kids. Did they happen to get on your bus?" And she's going off to her next stop, and she yells out our names on the bus. Um, Yells, "Michael, Ryan, you guys on the bus?" But we had already gotten off, and we're walking away. And when I turn around to say, "Hey, we're right here," she's not paying attention. She's already driving off. So I thought that was pretty weird. So eventually, I find out my mom's a very fast driver. When she feels like there's something happening or something going to happen. So she makes it to. We had this route that we would walk. It was maybe a quarter mile or something like that, maybe half a mile, from the bus stop to my grandma's house, and we saw her like peeling around the corner, and she slams on the brakes and gets out of the car and just hugs onto us both. "Don't you ever do that again!" Blah blah blah, and just like upset and crying and sad and didn't know like exactly how to handle the situation. Um, and my grandfather was my step grandfather Jetto. He's my grandfather. I don't want to call him a step grandfather. He's my grandfather. Jetto. Jetto was alive at that point too, and he was he would always dress up in a tracksuit every time he'd have to go outside because a tracksuit and put on some like white Reeboks or something like that, and he'd go walking around the neighborhood. So he comes walking up with his tracksuit and everything, and he's like, where were you, and trying to figure out. And so we eventually figure out that we weren't supposed to be on the bus that day. My mom called the school. The school called the bus. The school also called the police, I think. So everybody was like trying to figure out where we were. Nobody knew exactly where we were. There was this whole big like search thing all around the school and all around on every single bus and everything like that. And here we are, just in our big, oversized, heavy backpacks, just kind of like walking down the street to my grandma's house, out of care in the world, not realizing that we were causing all these people so much mayhem. My mom ends up calling the school back again, and this was really before cell phones, so we have to drive to my grandma's house, and she calls the school from the from my grandma's landline, and Oma's crying and my mom's crying, and Jetta's like, "Why did you get on the bus? You're supposed to get picked up from school from your parents today," and and just being a that's the way that he would show concern was. He'd kind of yell at you a little bit when he was showing concern. I don't know. It's so. Yeah, that's the time that my mom thought that we were kidnapped. uh, it was like her worst nightmare too. That was like the worst scenario. We had like a catchphrase or like a code word. So if some stranger came up to us and said, "Hey, your mom told me to give you a ride," we had some code phrase that we were supposed to say, or like that they were supposed to tell us, and that's the way that we knew that she was supposed to get us, or that the person was supposed to get us. And they said, she said she had like a different like code phrase or whatever. Every time somebody was supposed to pick us up, she would tell us this. Like it would be different every time. And so if there was ever like somebody that we knew coming to pick us up that didn't say the phrase or would say an old phrase, we would know not to get into that car. That never happened. It never ever happened, but it was a good idea. However, you can't very well tell the bus driver a code phrase saying that they're supposed to pick you up. And it was the bus. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, scared my mom half to death. And scared my grandparents half to death, and scared the whole school half to death, and the police got involved, and yeah, it was elementary school me got in a lot of trouble accidentally, and that was one of the times. So yeah, it's a fun little story about how my mom thought that I was abducted, but turns out I wasn't.